listening to a podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants with hosts Willie Dills, Chad King, and Ben Lee.
Let's go Giants! SF Giants! Let's go Giants! SF Giants!
Dedicated to the greatest team in Major League Baseball history, the San Francisco Giants, this is Torture Cast.
Standing on top, not gonna stop, we came to play, ain't slowing down, we're here to stay, and we're stopping on whatever's in our way, I'm feeling like a giant tonight.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for your hard luck San Francisco Giants. I'm Ben Lee. With me today to commiserate about our sorrows is Chad King. How's it going, Chad?
It's been better, Ben, but that's okay. I think it was so bad that's why Willie didn't want to join us tonight.
Yeah, it couldn't possibly have been internet trouble or anything like that, right?
No, he was faking all
definitely
that.
sorrow. It's definitely sorrow. He was definitely faking that, and we're worried about a couple other faked injuries that seem to be going on. So, but we'll get to that. Obviously, the first thing that we have to talk about is actually, you know what? Can we just talk about something else? Maybe we can just use today's episode to talk about something else. I really like puppies.
Yeah, how about chili recipes?
Chili recipes are pretty good. Yeah.
I know.
We were talking about video games before the podcast started.
How to fix your car's air conditioning unit. I mean, anything.
How to fix your job's air conditioning unit. Ours has been out for a couple of days. That's been really exciting. All right,
yeah,
fine. Let's face it. So,
well, I guess this is the first time, and this podcast has been around for a little more than 2 years now. And during that entire time, up until maybe the last week of the 2011 season, the Giants have always been in contention. And there's been positive things to talk about, but this is really the first time that this podcast has encountered oh my God, this is one of the worst teams in
really
all of baseball.
Year. Yeah, that's that's us.
That means obviously the podcast is going to fail and we're going to stop recording, right?
Oh yeah,
no,
sure. I'm totally over
we're
it.
We're not going to be the bandwagon fans that
see you guys next season when we have a chance of contending again.
Yeah.
This sucks. I'm out. Later. Bye.
But as you all know, that the last ray of hope was extinguished with a 3-game sweep at the hands of the lowly Cubs. And of course, that completed a 3-7 homestand. And the thing that really sucked about it is that the Giants, we talked in our last podcast, not the mini bonus-ode, but the full podcast you and I did a couple of weeks ago,
right,
that, they're probably out of it. But, hey, they've been 6.5 back before, as late as August 25th against the Padres in 2010. They're 6.5 back. If they can, rip off 7 or 8 wins during this 10-game homestand and the Dodgers cool off a little bit, they could be right back in this. They could be 3 games back, so.
Right.
That was
talking about that, and then
that was happy wishes.
And then Nate Scherholtz came back and said, "Hey, I like this park."
Well, not only that, but they started winning the first 2 games of the homestand, and you're thinking, now you're 5.5 back, and you're starting to creep back into it, and then the wheels literally fell off of everybody's bus. I mean, it just, oh my God.
Yeah, it's been pretty tough to watch. It's this is not one of those weeks where it has been easy to be a Giants fan, and it probably won't be one of those seasons where it is. But then again, it's kind of always easy to be a Giants fan, so I guess we have to, tough it out sometime.
Yeah, so now they're 12 games under 500, the 3rd worst team in the National League, and that really hurts when you're talking about the likes of the Marlins. Not that far above them right now.
So is anybody else glad that we moved the Astros to the AL strictly for comparison purposes? I mean, I wouldn't mind having the Astros to use as cannon fodder a little bit through the season, but
I don't know how well we do against them, to be honest.
Actually, at this point, we would get dominated by Bud Norris and Justin Maxwell. That's
what would happen.
That's probably about exactly what would happen. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, but a team that has prided themselves on defense and pitching now actually are the worst in the National League in both categories in terms of starting pitching and defense. So we don't have to recap what's gone wrong with the season. Let's talk about what's going on right now.
If you're not drinking yet, we're sure that you want to. So
I was 2 weeks ago. I am stone cold sober tonight.
Yeah.
So let's do this.
I was going to say, that's almost more depressing. I kind of feel bad about that.
All right, so we don't really have to wrap up the Cubs series other than they lost all 3 games by 1 run each. Let's see, game number 1 through the wickets. It was a little bit of a cricket game that Brandon Belt was playing there. Game number
croquet
2.
Game even.
Pretty much.
Something.
Game number 2, I actually went with my family. We said, hey, we haven't been to a Giants game in a year as a whole family, so let's take the kids. Let's spend $300 for good old-fashioned American baseball. And so we, took Caltrain up and got into the park. Of course, immediately my 3-year-old was like, let's go to the playground. So after the first 2 innings, I spent the next 5 down in the Coke bottle slide. Obviously, I didn't miss much. It was scoreless, and unfortunately, we had to depart in the bottom of the 7th.
In fairness, Noah picked a good day to go to the Coke bottle slides.
He did. And you know what? If any game we were going to leave early, because I hate leaving games early, but we had to for family reasons.
Well, sure.
But it was a good one to miss because I was sitting on the train and bases loaded, nobody out in the 8th inning with Posey, Pablo, and Pence coming up. And I'm like, oh, honey, look at what we're going to miss. We're going to miss this great situation. Wait, there's a ground out. Oh, first play. Well, okay, still. No, Pandy, ground ball. Another out. And then Pence. Waves weekly, whatever, 2 sliders, and that was it. And then Mr. Shearholtz decides to do a little damage on Sunday as well.
It's not like we don't like Nate Shearholtz. I certainly still like the guy. He's a Danville local and all that. I just don't like it when he's facing the Giants and doing that.
No, and he's already hit a couple home runs off of the Giants this year. He also hit one in Chicago as well. So, I mean, I think there's definitely
a little easier,
extra motivation.
But nonetheless.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
But there's certainly extra motivation for players who are traded from another team, even though he wanted to be traded. So that's the kind of the stickler here. He didn't want to stay around, but still, it's kind of like showing the Giants.
Got him regular playing time. It's something that he wasn't going to have out here, especially after the trade for, it's just, it wasn't likely that Shearholtz was going to get playing time the way that the organization kind of was looking at him and the way that we'd seen him kind of streak on and off. Yeah. And now he's getting regular playing time in Chicago. And
because he didn't get
Alfonso Soriano has been traded to the Yankees, which that's weird.
Yeah. That's a little strange too. I thought we were going to have an easier time with the Cubs with Soriano gone, but apparently not.
No.
Apparently the Giants get the bases loaded and they crap their pants in the batter's box and can't.
Well, that's kind of the thing though. Is
their bat.
We're getting into that part of the season where we have a tough time against everybody, and that's those moments where you look at it and you just kind of go, well. It's one of those things where the only reason that we sound like everything sounds like it's over, it's not just because it's 12 games under 500, although that's terrible, but then again, not a lot of teams in the NL West are above 500, but it's because everything, the Giants have just looked really punchless, and it's not necessarily something that you're going to fix by just throwing another cog in there, but at the same time, it's that thing where you just sit there going, well, we've seen them suddenly break out of this before, but it's it's the end of July and we've just been watching this for almost 2 months now, and it's like, well, okay. Yeah.
It's now lasted longer than the previous part of the season when they were in first place.
Right.
So this is the team that we have right now. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. This is not a slump. This is not a 2 or 3 week period where the bats have gone cold and the starting pitching has gone cold. No, this is this team. For whatever reason, you can point to a couple of injuries and the lack of starting pitching depth and the platoon in left field and center field, but it's just kind of to me, I think it's psychological more than anything. I'm not a shrink or anything, but this team isn't that different than the team that won the 2012 World Series. Certainly a couple positions here or there, which are going to make a difference in a few games, but not the drastic difference you see right now. It's just not. From pitching to hitting to defense, all three have just bottomed out for whatever reason. You cannot blame it solely on injuries or solely on, not having an extra prospect or solely on this or solely on that. I think it's a team-wide psyche. I really do. I don't know if they made a deal with the Devil last year and for their second ring, and this is kind of payback for it. But either way,
or if they've set up some kind of strange cosmic karma where it's every other year for a while.
It's the Brett Saberhagen effect.
It's the Aubrey Huff syndrome.
There you go.
All right. Well, you know what though? There are some things going on, and it really kind of behooves us to talk about what's been happening with the roster, because if you thought you didn't recognize our roster before, you're not going to recognize it again pretty soon. Let's talk DL first. We had a couple of changes with the DL, with transactions. Obviously, everybody knows that, a lot of people know that Roger Kieschnick, the third pick of the draft that brought us Buster Posey, is on his way up from Fresno, as is Brett Pill, because Brett Pill, and also because Brett Pill. What that means, of course, there's no 40-man roster move that needs to be made for Brett Pill. I think Kieschnick might be on the 40-man as well. I'm not actually sure.
I believe he's on the 40-man.
I think so. Okay. Which means, of course, no major moves to get anybody off of the 40-man roster, but that does mean that 2 guys need to come off the active team. So we've got Tony Abreu.
That is what blew up Twitter today, as we were discussing here before we started recording.
It means we're going to trade someone. I'm sure they're going to trade somebody.
Oh, yeah.
And Tony Abreu was on the deal.
That did not happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're out one Tony Abreu with knee bursitis.
He scraped his knee on the dugout steps or something.
Well, it's bursitis, so...
They need to kiss his boo-boo.
Well, that's an option. Although, I don't know. It's with the size of Bochy's head and the luck we've had, he'd go for that and just end up headbutting the dude in the nose. I mean, knee bursitis is... Let's face it, knee bursitis is one of those all-purpose... you're going to the DL with something that we can kind of justify. This is, we're getting towards, if we're not already at, I mean, let's face it, we're getting towards a part of the season where just about everybody's got a knock of some kind. If you're completely healthy at this point in the season, something's wrong with you. There's always something you're nursing, and there's always something that reasonably the team can find to put you on the DL. And knee bursitis is like one of the classic, we need to get you off of the main roster for at least a couple weeks while we figure out what to do here, and or while we figure out what we've got in this young kid. And so bringing up Brett Pill and Roger Kieschnick, I think we already know what we have in Pill, and this is a good year for us to just say this is what we have in Pill. But Kieschnick, it's going to be interesting giving him a chance to actually make his major league debut, see some time on the field, and see what happens when we get him out there. He's been doing okay in Fresno, but the team hasn't necessarily sounded like they thought he was ready to see big league pitching. I don't know a ton about where he's at right now, but the stats have been okay. So
yeah, except for his strikeout ratio, it's pretty damn high. But yeah, and that's in AAA.
And it's not a high average for what traditionally is kind of a hitter's league. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm really curious to see Kieschnick. I do think that's something I'm really looking forward to, just because we've heard a lot about the guy and we saw some great things from him in spring training on and off. Certainly worth taking a look, and now is the time to do that, especially if we're going to move Abreu, who I think we've seen enough of for a little bit. Certainly a bit of a reactionary move, but Abreu was kind of one of the extra guys on the roster. He's a bench utility guy. He's been handy to have around sometimes, but at this point in the season, it makes sense to bring up a couple other guys too. Abreu is not exactly going to be trade bait, so there's despite his history as a massive prospect that just never panned out, he just has not panned out. So right, it's the never panned out, which is really the key here.
Kind of the never panned out, yeah.
And additionally, who was it that someone else got optioned? Kensuke Tanaka got optioned back to Fresno as well. And yes. Obviously that's a bit of a shame. I certainly liked watching Tanaka play. I had a lot of fun with that. But
well, we're not going to see all the Japanese media next Monday, apparently.
Right. Well, no, I'm sure that they've all had to. What would be really funny is if the Giants ended up putting someone else on the DL and then called Tanaka back up. Say, Joaquin Arias develops, knee bursitis.
That's right. Everybody has knee bursitis.
Suddenly everybody's got knee bursitis. And
knee bursitis for you, and knee bursitis for you.
You have a bursa, and you have a bursa, and you have everybody gets a bursa. Oh, man.
Oh, sorry, everybody. We're just a little nutty right now.
We're no more than usual. Or then certainly no more than we were. It's just there's less bar noise to cover us up and make it sound like we're really, at the end of the day. It's no. People are just going to listen to this at 9 a.m. and go, "Wow, what is wrong with these guys?"
I could get my wife to come down and take shots to recreate that background noise.
Well, I mean, after this season, I'm sure you'll both need it. But so let's talk a couple of the other moves. There haven't been much. Really, it's just been acquiring Guillermo Moscoso, which I think was an interesting move. Moscoso has had not a ton of success with the Cubs, not a ton of success with the Rockies, some success with the A's on and off. I mean, he's one of those guys that's handy to have around, but he's not necessarily going to be the next Chad Godin. No. Which even we weren't expecting Chad Godin to be the next Chad Godin, but I don't think it's going to be Guillermo Moscoso. That doesn't mean he's a bad guy to have around. Could definitely provide a little bit of depth, but he's starting in the minor leagues because that's where he's at, and so as a result, we don't have to worry about his contract immediately, which is nice. So
that's right.
He becomes a valuable chip as almost as in reserve if the Giants decide that they don't want to bring him up right away, and that's going to be pretty nice to have around. That's kind of been it, though. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of other moves. Joaquin Arias came off the DL, and Jake Dunning was sent down. I felt like I thought we saw some nice things from Dunning. Certainly some that could serve fairly well in the future for somebody that hadn't been talked about a ton as prospects watch go, but had a heck of a year in Fresno. I wouldn't be surprised to see Dunning back up either in September or maybe even next year, depending on where the chips fall with the bullpen.
Oh yeah, I would imagine he's going to be back up with the rosters expanding to 40 here in September. So, no, he's had flashes of brilliance, but he's young, and man, that dude is skinny too.
Dunning's not that young, but he doesn't have a ton of experience at the big league level, and that's kind of been the main thing. I mean, when Dunning is like, what, 25?
Yeah.
So, youngish.
Youngish. Yeah, I guess you're right. He's kind of like, I don't know, Lincecum's age, basically.
Hate to break it to you, but Lincecum's not 25 anymore.
Oh, he's 27 now, isn't he?
No, he is 29, sir.
29, right, no. Yeah, I just corrected myself.
That's Lincecum. Lincecum is 1 month younger than me, almost exactly.
Oh, so you know that to the T.
This is the way that I remember, because I'm not 25 anymore either.
Yeah.
All right, so I don't even know what to follow that up with.
They went to the White House today.
Oh, there you go. That's perfect. All right.
You get swept by the Cubs, and you get to go to the White House.
You know, let's face it, though. If you let one of the Chicago teams beat you 6 ways from Sunday, you get to meet the Chicago-based president.
There you go.
That's
I'm sure
logical,
he was
right?
smiling a little bit. Totally logical.
Yeah, well, you know what? It wasn't the White Sox, so it was just a little bit.
Just a little bit. It'd be like the A's or something. But, you know, it is a little odd to see these guys go to the White House to celebrate their 2012. This is really the last perk, the last ceremony or event that takes place after winning the World Series. So they really do string these events out. You know, the Giants PR with all the offseason stuff, and then the first, month of the season, they got ring day and parade or flag day, and everybody gets a little mini trophy day.
That's a national holiday. All right. No, but it's true though. It's and
I think that's okay, because you don't know when you're going to win your next World Series. So just make it one huge long party that lasts almost a year.
I mean, in 2010 we didn't know when the next one was coming. We had an inkling maybe, but nobody knew.
No, not at all.
Certainly after 2011 it looked pretty bleak for a minute.
And so this is kind of the last thing. It's just that certainly no one expected to be celebrating this championship while they were 12 games under 500. That's, I think, what's really sobering. And, Posey kind of had some good quotes, and so did Sabian. Basically, Posey said, coming here is good because it really reminds us that we're good players. This isn't all doom and gloom. So in a way he was saying, yeah, we're kind of down right now, and as a team, but seeing this kind of reminds us that, no, we were good just like 9 months ago. We won the World Series. We're good players. We need to pick it up. And Sabian said kind of a similar thing. He said it was a reunion, a breath of fresh air, something to smile about. He's definitely not a happy camper right now. Listening to him on KMBR earlier in the week, even before the Cubs series, when there were 7 out, I guess.
Yeah, he tends to be kind of a grouch anyway, but I can imagine it's only been worse.
No, he was very forthcoming with Tom Tolbert. He was saying that I'm a realist, and I don't think it's likely that we're going to suddenly catch fire and get back in this thing. So that's, what are the options we have to look at, unless something really turns around super quickly, or we only have a few days left to the deadline. And so this is kind of I always wait to the last second to see what this team is going to do. You need all the information you can get all the way up to the last second, and then you pull the trigger if you think it's worth it. And it certainly will depend if you're a seller or a buyer. Yeah, that was, of course, right before the Cubs series. So
and then
after that happened, he's like, "Well, we're done."
Well, let's look at that then, though. I mean, I think that by that token, the next thing that you ask is, where do the Giants go from here? Does this put the Giants firmly in the sellers category? Are the Giants still not the type to be sellers per se when they've got a fairly strong team nucleus that just hasn't got it this year? Or do the Giants just kind of say, you know what, it's not happening, the heck with it, just like, because the Giants have never been fire sale types. They know that they've got a large fan base. They really want to keep them entertained. They want to at least keep the semblance of a strong baseball team, and they don't want to disassemble a lot of personalities that fans have grown to love, especially when they're quality players that they still might be able to get some kind of value back on. But at the same time, you have to start at least entertaining ideas. And I know that you thought of a couple of prime candidates, certainly guys that are appealing, that aren't necessarily on the untouchable block. What are you thinking?
My personal opinion is that they actually should stand pat. The reason being, you just touched on it there. I think it was a little bit of bad luck and a little bit of bad timing, which kind of contributed to their failures this year. You can't put it squarely on, Lincecum or Kane or Pence or any of these guys. Lincecum's had a better season this year than last year, no hitter. Even his game on Sunday, I mean, 4 hits.
Very nice on Sunday.
4 hits, 10 strikeouts.
Terrible, but
yeah, it's just 2 gopher balls. But, I mean, he struck out 10 and 7, and, 4 times out of 5, that's going to be good enough for a win. Bumgarner, obviously, he's been amazingly solid. He's been their one shining piece this year. But I just don't see what kind of trade value they're going to get from a guy like Lincecum, even though he's been talked about. I don't think if he were traded, he would be traded to be a starter. I think some teams saw what he did in the bullpen last year, and maybe that would be their value. I could be wrong about that. That's just my assumption, but they're not going to want a guy who's got a 4.8 or whatever ERA to fit in as their 5th starter. I could be wrong, but this is for the playoff run and potentially the playoffs. Pence, of course, is a real intriguing fit for I think a lot of teams. They've been some teams that have been bandied about are like Kansas City, who are back up to 500 and actually in the race. They have a really weak right fielder.
Right.
And then Lopez as well, Javi Lopez, being the left-handed specialist that he is, and we all know he's been extremely solid 99% of the time. He was key in really both World Series runs, and he was a great acquisition from Pittsburgh.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he's been monumental. And so I think he's actually probably who's been getting the most interest, even though he's not the highest profile player, because he's such a intricate cog and a playoff wheel that teams like the Tigers and others might be very, very interested in him. But I think the Giants,
saying that essentially he's going to be the next Octavio Dotel.
There you go. Yeah, the guy who's shipped around all over the place. The problem is that these guys are all free agents at the end of the year, and that's why they are potentially trade bait. Because whenever, as you all know, if you become a free agent, the Giants can offer him a qualifying offer to try and hope to get a draft pick back as compensation.
Right. I think the qualifying offer is going to be huge in the way that it affects the Lincecum and Pence negotiations. The new CBA says that it doesn't matter if somebody gives you an outside value on a type A or a type B free agent. Just if you make the player a qualifying offer, then you get something if they leave.
Exactly, and it's the average salary of the top 125 salaries in the league. So I think that averages out to be about $14 million right now. So that's kind of what the offer they would make. And so the Giants, they're not out of the running to re-sign Pence or Lopez or Lincecum after the end of the season, but at least they could give them a qualifying offer and get a draft pick as compensation for losing them. Now, other people would think that you need to trade them right now because you can get a lot more value back in the term of prospects, and then they're still a free agent at the end of the year, and you can still re-sign them for next year. So they could go somewhere else for 3 months.
It's
and
just that doesn't. It
does not happen.
That it happens that way. It has happened before.
It's extremely unlikely.
Right. I mean, and
a guy like Pence, I firmly believe he wants to stay here. He hasn't.
Yeah, it's not like guys like
the contrary, but
guys like Anthony Rizzo, where or was it Rizzo? I'm trying to remember who it was. There was a player a while back, started in the minors, got traded, and the GM at the time told him, "We will get you back." And they ended up getting him back, but it was because the GM had gone to another team, and so they did in fact get him back. He ended up playing in the bigs. I feel like it was Anthony Rizzo, but I'm definitely blanking out now. Maybe it was somebody else. That's a shame.
No, I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. But I was
going to say it was a really good story that I totally lost all the punch on because
you just lost everything there.
It's over. It's over. Moments passed. Moving on.
So I do understand the potential. I think Lincecum, if they did get really good offers for him, I love the guy, but I think they would pull the trigger on him because I don't think he is going to be back in San Francisco. And if the value is going to be more than a compensatory draft pick, then you got to take it. I think Pence, though, I think you really have a good shot at re-signing him. So, and I think
Pence has played very well. He is a strong right fielder in a free agent class that won't necessarily have a ton of strong right fielders.
Exactly. So I really do think that they need to just concentrate on re-signing him before the end of the year. And then the same with Lopez. I think this team, it's a good team. They showed it at the beginning of the year. They hit some, unfortunate pitfalls, and they have some work to do in the starting rotation, certainly defensively, and certainly with, the left field issue. But these trades, if they were to, execute one or two of them in the next 24 hours here, they're not going to make a difference for next year. And I think that's the key right there, is that the Giants still have that core nucleus. They didn't have a fire sale like the Marlins. They're not rebuilding from scratch. They have a good core here, so they don't want to get rid of some of their key components for a couple of prospects.
Well, the only reason that, I'll point out that earlier, Wendy Thurm, Hanging Sliders, actually suggested a trade of Brandon Belt plus a little more for Bud Norris on the Astros. I don't necessarily like that just because I like Brandon Belt, and I'm sure that there are plenty of people who are, there are people who are like salivating at the prospect. Right, well, there's both. There's people who are salivating at the prospect and people who are crying at it. But Belt plus something, it depends on the something. But Bud Norris as a return for that, given this current state of the starting pitching,
his immediate.
Nice. And I mean, let's face it, Zito most likely falls off the books after this year with a $7 million buyout
as well.
Lincecum very well might as well. Then the question becomes, do you pull somebody else up? Do you see how Kickham has improved over the offseason, which seems unlikely? But you never know. Do you look at Chad Godin and bring him back as a full-time starter next year? Bud Norris is under team control, though. He avoided an arbitration year by signing a 1-year contract with the Astros this year. And nothing says that he'll be around a couple more years if you get him for the end of this year. So I mean, Norris is actually a decent investment because he's not a rent-a-player pitcher.
No, you don't just get him for a few months.
But he's also a quality guy. Norris has been probably one of the best pieces of that rotation. Besides, well, I mean, I guess Eric Bedard, but it's weird saying that. But okay, but congratulations, Eric Bedard. You've been having a good year. Or like Phil Humber. Phil Humber is Phil Humber, So it's the Houston doesn't have a ton of useful pieces, but they always want to get something back. And I mean, somebody like Brandon Belt versus Brett Wallace. They're different players, but they're both players that wouldn't necessarily stick as starters on other teams, and Houston may very well want to see what they can do with that. And he's a piece that may be starting to wear out his welcome in San Francisco, as sad as I am to say it, so that makes a lot of sense. Conversely, though, when we were talking about Lopez trades, you were saying, I think, that we'd heard the Tigers apparently are interested in Lopez, although let's face it, a lot of teams are probably kind of interested in Lopez.
It's not just the Tigers. Yeah, they're just one of the ones that have made a little bit more buzz than others.
Sure. Well, and the Tigers did just pick up Jose Veras from the Astros. They're obviously trying to bolster a bullpen that's clearly been one of their weakest points for all season. I mean, somebody made a joke the other day about Valdez, one of their pitchers, and just how he sneaks off into the dugout and peels off the Dez from his jersey to reveal the word Verde. So it's pretty well documented by now. Jose Valverde has kind of imploded himself as a closer, and that just became kind of a theme. When Joaquin Benoit is your closer, something has gone horribly wrong. So the Tigers are doing a good job trying to improve their bullpen. Jose Veras was a nice pickup for them, and the question is, do they need a very specific? Do they need a loogie like Javier Lopez? And maybe they do.
Well, give me your thoughts about Brian Wilson right now, because he had an outing, a tryout, whatever you want to call it, at USF with Righetti and a couple of scouts. And Righetti, of course, no comment, but the scouts were saying he was throwing 90 to 93 and he had good movement, and they said he was, quote, almost ready. Then he went down to L.A. and tried out for 10 teams. Reps from 10 teams were there. It was Tigers, Phillies, Giants, A's. The list goes on and on. Rangers, I think. Tigers, of course, were there. And again, the scouts came back saying, 90 to 93, good movement. He's almost ready. So at this point, I can see someone signing him maybe in mid-August. Who do you think might actually take a chance on him? I know there's a lot of Giants fans out there that want him back, but I just don't see where he necessarily fits on this team for just the end of this year, unless they sign him for 2 years, of course.
I mean, I think the main issue becomes is someone Well, Brian Wilson has always kind of been willing to make demands when he's going into contracts, and I think that this is going to be a little bit different because obviously he's coming off of an injury. He's been rehabbing that. I don't think he's necessarily going to go into it saying, I am going to be this, you need to make me this. But I think
he has no power to do that. Yeah.
No, but at the same time, I think there's going to be a strong push for him to be looked at as a setup guy or closer. And I think that he still probably has the quality to do that if he's pitching the way the scouts say he is. And it's hard to know that without seeing him, obviously. Mm-hmm. But, if he gets picked up as a closer, then you're looking at a team that's got a weakness at closer. And, it's hard to say. I think it depends on how many years you're looking at signing him for, what you're looking to do with him. You have
the Pirates that were there too, and of course they lost Jason Grilli for a while, so
right.
That's another possible fit.
They used to have Joel Hanrahan. I mean, come on now. Brian Wilson would not be a bad fit for, almost any team, to be honest, though. You can always use a hand out of the bullpen. The question is really the asking price. That's really what's that's where it's going to come from. I know that as far as bullpens go, there have definitely been people looking at, the ones who have been looking at Lopez for left-handed relief aren't necessarily totally out of needing relief in general. But, teams like the Braves that need more of a left-handed chip, that's different. The Braves have Venters and Kimbrel. They're not really going anywhere. Long term, you're probably not going to need to sign a guy like Wilson, and Wilson is going to be looking for a longer contract. He's not going to be looking for a 1 or a 2 year at this point in his career. He's going to be looking for something between 3 and 5. As a reliever, it's going to be closer to 2 to 3. But then again,
no one's going to give him more than 2, in my opinion. Coming off second Tommy John.
Off the second Tommy John surgery, it's unlikely he gets more than 2. I agree. But at the same time, he's going to be looking for more than 1 year or more than a half year. Brian Wilson isn't looking for a contract to just close out this year and then go somewhere else. No. He wants something that's at least next year as well. No, I think that's definitely what's going to happen. But I know there's a lot of Giants fans out there that I think are nostalgic, and they would love to see the beard back. But it's not like honest, the bullpen has necessarily been the most shut down. So there's always a question, do you sign him? Do you do an incentive-laden minor league contract or something? But, Wilson's going to be looking for more than that, and other teams might be willing to give it to him. I don't know that we're in a position where we necessarily need him right now. We obviously don't need him right now, but he definitely could play some use. But we're not really in a position right now where signing Brian Wilson is the logical maneuver.
Exactly. That's where I think it fits. It's not logical at this point. They don't need him as a setup guy, and so obviously not a closer. Romo's your closer. That's just that's where it is. So I think it would cause some awkward situations as well, just in the bullpen.
Having Wilson as a setup guy and Romo as a closer.
Yeah, or anywhere in the bullpen, if it's setup or 7th inning or whatever.
I do think that'd be a little weird.
It's a little role reversal, and I think that some of the personas wouldn't exactly appreciate that. So
I feel like if it was at the beginning of a season and you were bringing Wilson in like that and people were kind of reestablishing themselves, it wouldn't be as big of a deal. But I do feel like if he was coming in to join the team mid-season as a pickup, you look at him as some kind of big deal pickup, and then he doesn't close. The dynamic's a little bit different there, I think. I don't know. I don't see the Giants signing Wilson, and I don't think that that's too likely. In the future, maybe. If he stays healthy, maybe. This season and mid-season, probably not. I do want to actually jump over to the tweet at me, bro section though, because we threw out a couple of conversation starters recently, and we got some interesting things back. As we posted, maybe the Giants were actually sellers in 2012 when they sold their soul to the devil for a second ring. That would explain this year. Duh. Not entirely out of the question. I feel like the only person who escaped that one was Hunter Pence, who came on, had a horrible year, and then ended up getting a ring anyway.
Yeah,
maybe he was. Well, he's the Reverend. He can't possibly have sold his soul to the devil. Come on now.
Duh.
What's some of the stuff we heard back on that though? Because some of these are pretty good.
All right, so we heard from @Matt Healy. Been thinking the same. Too many outrageously lucky things happened last year. Perhaps it's the luck rebalancing itself out.
It's the law of averages.
The law of averages, exactly. Then Eastan Sal said, or we defied the baseball gods last year by refusing to die, and this year they are exacting their revenge. So little baseball god talk.
I was going to say,
and deities coming down to exact their revenge on us.
Suddenly we're Odysseus facing up to our own hubris.
They're like, wait, we gave him 2 rings? Oh, No. We got to fix that this year. All right. We're gonna
that's
balance.
it.
Okay, Pirates. This is what you
Pirates? Is this Pirates? You've put in 20 years now? 20 years. We were waiting for 2021. Yeah, this year seems good. Have a winning season.
No, don't fall on your face again in the second half.
It's like we tried last year and then you messed it up. This time you better get it going. We also got one from Eddie Regasa at Medic2442. This one was pretty good. You just got swept by the Cubs. What are you going to do next? We're going to Disneyland. No, I mean the White House. Yeah, that's it. That was
that was a good one.
That was pretty good. It is funny. It's an interesting juxtaposition, and it's one of those ones that we're the only ones that get to have that, except for the 1997 to Miami Marlins, who blew up the team, and suddenly all the guys going to the White House. It's like none of us were actually there, but okay. This is largely the same team, and they're getting their chance to enjoy their moment in the sun after having several moments under very dark, thick fog clouds, literally and figuratively. Yep. So it was a funny thing, and it's worth acknowledging that we get to do that because we were the best last year, and we get to do that this year because we were the best
no matter
last
what,
year.
right? You still get to do it, so that's just tradition.
And we won't get to do it next year because we are definitely not the best this year, but that's okay because that's still 2 trips to the White House that you can put under your belt if you've been on this team since 2010.
2014 is the next even year, so we still have that.
Sure, we'll just Aubrey Huff our way into all right. Anyway, the other question we asked was the inevitable, because Giants fans thought it had gotten bad. We thought that it had gotten pretty bad, and we said, okay, you know what, this is really bad. We just got no hit by Homer Bailey, and we've been just losing a ton of. This is really bad. And then we finally had to ask, so what's below rock bottom?
And so we had Katie at Catalia, I don't know how to pronounce that. Hell. And very close to that.
That's logical. That's logical.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. And Jay Juntado also said hell, the 9th circle of hell. A lot of people are thinking about Hades and the devil and everything else.
Look, it's bleak, people, but come on now.
Fire and brimstone. I didn't know it had gotten that bad. And then the wine worker.
No, that's just Hunter Pence staring at you. It's going to be fine.
Laser eyes.
It's only because he loves you so much.
That's right. He adores you with his eyeballs. And then you have at the wine worker saying, you see Pacific Rim, where the monsters come through the portal at the bottom of the ocean? Yeah, that's below rock bottom.
Oh.
And what's funny is that I had just seen Pacific Rim the night before. So this is really good timing.
Very timely. So the Giants are actually, within the next couple of months, you're saying that Hunter Pence is actually going to turn into a kaiju.
Yeah, he's going to turn into a kaiju, or the Giants. It's a logical connection. What was the first city that the kaiju attacked? San Francisco. See the connection here? I just thought of that.
I was going to say I haven't actually seen the movie yet, but fair enough.
Oh, there you go. So,
you completely ruined the whole thing for me now. You realize
the first kaiju that comes out of the portal, he lays the smackdown on San Francisco. Oh yeah, Golden Gate Bridge gone. Oh yeah.
That's because movie designers really like just taking out the Golden Gate Bridge for some reason. Like, is it the Empire State Building or the Golden Gate Bridge? We're blowing up one of them. Pick one.
I've always thought about that. Is
this a big world-spanning movie? Cool. We're going to blow up one of those two. Except for Defiance, which took out the St. Louis Arch, which I appreciate.
The aliens and the asteroids will always hit national landmarks.
Yes.
Period.
They're just trying to inspire fear, even though they don't necessarily know what those things are there for.
They have an innate
big.
attraction.
This will be terrifying. Let's just take out the big
kaiju comes out of the Pacific Ocean. He's like, big orange bridge. Rawr,
bridge in my way. It's orange. I can't stop staring at it. Rawr.
I could go over here to the land where it's flat, but I'm going to go through the bridge.
Nope, right through it.
So yeah, clearly they're expressing their disgust on San Francisco and their play, so they decided to wipe out the whole city.
Okay.
So that explains it. Okay.
Wait, question in that case. Even though I haven't seen the movie, I do know the basic premise. If you were going to recruit 2 Giants players to pilot a Jaeger, which 2 do you pick? And I am going to ask this again tomorrow on Twitter because I want to.
You got to put that on Twitter.
I want to know what people think now. If you're going to pick 2 Giants players to pilot a Jaeger, do we want to hold off on this? Ask this and then answer it next week?
Yeah, I think that's a good one. That's a good one. Okay.
If you have made it this far in the podcast by now, this is the way that you're going to let us know. You're going to answer for us either by email. You can get us at mail@torturecast.com or on our @torturecast Twitter which two Giants players or front office members, let's throw that out there, which two Giants players or front office members do you think would be the best two pilots of a Jaeger?
I like that. That's a good question.
We're going to put that out there.
Oh, yeah. And the movies featured many racial stereotypes of those pilots, by the way. It was pretty hilarious.
Okay, so we'll feature Giants player stereotypes. They're going to swing and they're never going to hit anything with the fists. But I'm just saying, I just want to know what our fans and our community and our listeners think would be the most appropriate. I really like crossing my nerddom with my baseball nerddom.
Oh, absolutely.
I did ask somebody, I did once ask somebody which Star Trek The Next Generation bridge crew members they thought they would put at first and fourth in a lineup. So, I mean, anyway, without answering that one, let's actually talk new favorite guys so I can stop talking about my own total geekdom. But
all right.
we gotta have something. There's got to be a bright spot in here somewhere. Find something, please.
Yeah,
anything.
I had a tough time, so I put in Buster Posey, and then I was reminded that he actually hasn't gotten a hit since the game we were at last 2 Mondays ago.
Oh.
He's 0 for his last 19. So I don't have anyone.
As goes Posey, so go the Giants.
Well, he's still over 300 right now. I don't mean to give him all that crap, but there's a couple of bright spots on this team this year. So, and he's one of them. He's just in a slump right now.
He is not currently one of them, but he has been one of them. And when you can't find a whole lot of others, he can be the new favorite guy just by default. That's fine.
Just by default, yeah.
Yeah, we always just kind of swing back around and we go, I don't know who to pick for a new favorite guy. Who wants to say Posey this week? Somebody pick Posey this week.
It's like Captain America. Here we go.
No, that's David Wright. We've been over this. So my new favorite guy is going to be Madison Bumgarner, because I feel like no matter how bleak things have gotten for the Giants, he's been the guy this season where he has just about always looked good. Not always, but very close to always. The majority of his starts have been very good. And his last one, even in the middle of a massive slide and a horrible slump, he really kept us in that ball game pretty much by himself, it felt like. Just very, very effective overall at just not allowing runs to score, whether or not he's necessarily kept people off base. But on the other hand, we haven't really gotten too many people off of the bases other than by grounding into double plays and things. We aren't providing a lot of support. And despite that, I feel like Bumgarner has had a pretty solid month of July overall, with some blips, but overall. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Bumgarner as my new favorite guy. We haven't had a lot of surprising new favorite guys yet. Maybe mine will be Kieschnick next week. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll see what he does. But yeah, Bumgarner, I'm sure he never shows any emotion, but I'm sure he's got to be frustrated. Another 8 innings of no runs, and he gets the no decision. The week before, he allows 1 run in 7 and gets the loss. He has 10 wins this year. I think he'd easily. If this performance was last year on that same team, he'd easily have 14, maybe even 15 wins by now. So
pretty close.
Must be pretty frustrating for him, but
it's got to be. He's working his way up to another, and probably a no-hitter, actually. Let's face it. So we're gonna have like 4 of those in the last 5-6 years. No, surprise. We've just been waiting since 1962. It's
been pretty special to see 3 no-hitters / perfect games in the last since 2009. So
yeah,
it's been pretty cool.
I'm going to go ahead and give my honorary new favorite guy mention to President Obama. Just because
he was very diplomatic.
That is his job, in a way. And it's fun anytime your team gets to go to the White House, and it's fun anytime your team gets to meet the president. And our team has gotten to do it twice. If you haven't read the article by Grant Brisby yet at McCovey Chronicles about 10 quotes from the Giants to the White House,
that's
pretty great. We'll try and get it in the show notes, but you absolutely should read it. The highlight, it's got a couple of highlights. Some of them feature Buster Posey, and I strongly agree.
Yes.
I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. I don't really feel like hating on anybody this week. I feel like we've been kind of negative enough already, and
yeah. This whole podcast is seething with negativity, but so let's not hate on anyone. I'm good with that.
No, I'm good with that too. We can get back to that. We can get back to that when we have Willie around.
Yeah, we'll do that.
He's better at it than either of us. Let's face it.
Yeah.
But
giant slump. Willie doesn't do a podcast. Coincidence?
Coincidence? I think not. So we have our section called "Why We Will Win It All," and we are currently sarcastically for this week going to go ahead and call it "Why We Will Win It All" next year. Although by next week we may have swung back around to our old system of waiting until we're mathematically eliminated just out of sheer dumb hope.
That's right.
Just because we're 12 under 500 for the first time yet this season, we're going to go ahead and call it why we'll win it all next year, and we'll look at it from that angle. Chad, hit me. You got to have something. There's some hope. There is hope to be found around here. So hit me with some of it.
I kind of feel like it's when you're a kid and you kind of mess up and you're like, do over. I get a do over. That's what I think they're going to get next year. They're going to have most of the same team back. Well, I shouldn't say most. They're actually going to be a little bit more different next year than they were this year in terms of compared to last year, because they may not have Pence or Lincecum or Lopez or some of these guys, but I think they're still going to have a good core nucleus. And if they get the right additions, I think it was a little bad luck this year. I really do, from the injury department and just their psyche. So that's just how I feel. It's a mulligan.
Yeah.
You have to still throw away the whole season. The stats still count, but it's like a do-over.
But yeah, we're actually going to replay the 2013 season while the rest of you start 2014. Is that cool?
Yeah, we didn't mean to do that. So I remember.
I'm going to use my continue.
I remember whatever a month ago when they were still a few games over 500 and they were still hanging out there in first or second place. It was amazing to see them come within a couple of games of 500, and I'm like, this is really weird to see the Giants close to 500. I'm sure they're going to bounce back. And then in a few days, they were at 500. And I'm like, I can't believe they've lost as many games as they've won. This is insane. Like, this is not this team. I'm sure they're going to be fine. And then, boom, it's just 2, 3, 5, 6 games under 500. They went to the break, 7 or 8 games under 500, I think. And here they are sitting at 12. 12 games under 500. Ben, they're officially a bad team. Ouch. They're not mediocre anymore.
Ouch. You were saying mean things. Don't say mean things.
We'll see what happens is when we throw out, we're not going to hate on anyone. It just happened. Sorry. I'm just
well, that was
hating the ether right now.
That's why we didn't do a specific segment just for hating on people. That's why.
I guess I had too much hate pent up.
It was just all kind of spread out through the entire podcast. I think that we've got most of our franchise players intact. You've got Bumgarner coming back next year. Posey is coming. Both of them are sticking around long term. Kane's sticking around long term. You're going to have even a couple of the dependable bullpen guys. We've got like Affelt is coming back. We're in a pretty decent spot. You've got some younger guys who are going to be sticking around for a bit, and we'll certainly see how some of them go, like Kishnik or any of them next season. Although you've also got guys coming back like Angel Pagan. So we're in a pretty good spot as far as keeping a lot of the what we've seen as being the strongest part of this team intact. It's going to be a question of what we do to build around it in the offseason and which of these guys stick around. We're certainly looking at Pence coming back. I think a lot of us think Lincecum is, maybe a 60% chance doesn't come back guy. Zito obviously won't be. But, you've got like Vogelsong will likely be around. Pence might be around. Pagan will, Bumgarner will, Kane will, Posey will. And so, you've got that's a pretty strong team to start for building around, regardless of what else you do with the pieces. And I think there are a lot of teams that wish they had as strong a nucleus of players to start from.
Yeah, and like you noted earlier, we have a couple of large contracts leaving the books, assuming they don't sign Lincecum, which they might, and I wouldn't be necessarily against it, but I can reserve my judgment to see how he performs in the last 2 months of the season.
And what you get him back for, obviously.
20+ mil. So that's just huge, and that really does enable them to get another solid arm. Or a solid bat potentially. Although I haven't reviewed exactly what the free agent pool is going to be like this year.
There's always the chance that somehow you bring back Carlos Beltran or as outfielders go, it ain't huge, but you get like Carlos Beltran or like Nelson Cruz maybe, although he's always been a right fielder. Frank Gore will be on the. Yeah, I'm kidding. Frank Gore is not the answer, but he has been nice to have around. He's been nice to have around. He's made some good moves, but or we could always pick up Delman Young. That would be a great idea. I am absolutely looking forward to the Giants inevitably picking up Delman Young over the offseason.
Clearly.
But it's going to be interesting seeing what the Giants do, having had some payroll free up for almost. We've had certainly some because we've got a pretty darn high payroll for this team, but we haven't really seen what the Giants have done with like kind of that much freedom, just because there's always been that Barry Zito contract mixed in with that, Aaron Rowan contract and other things like that, just kind of hanging around the Giants the whole time. So I think it's going to be interesting to see for sure. Just what happens when you take a team that's already fairly good and willing to spend and willing to go for a certain amount of like middle to high names, and then give them back about 13 million on payroll or more, maybe even 20 to 25 million on payroll for next year, and see what happens. I'm curious. I mean, the Giants certainly haven't done poorly from a business standpoint, regardless of how well the team is or isn't doing this year. So,
yeah, even though they're on pace to be the second worst title defense team in the modern era,
but they're not going to be the second worst title defense in attendance.
Exactly, and certainly they're not going to be even close to being as bad as the worst team, which is the Florida Marlins, as far as the next year. They got a balance reload, so
yeah.
So there we are.
So, I mean, I think it's bleak now, and this is some of the first time that it's been this bleak. So here we are, sounding all grumpy about it. But I am curious to see what happens.
We're spoiled brats. That's all we are.
That's true. We're totally spoiled brats, and I totally want my bottle, and I'm really upset that I haven't gotten to take a nap.
I want my World Series ring now, and I want it.
I want it. I need it. Somehow the kids always say they need it. They never do.
Pretty much.
All right. I think that's probably enough for us here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to head to bed. And hopefully some of you are as well, because it's, trust me, everything is going to look better after a good night's sleep. Remember, today, on the day that we recorded this podcast, the Giants, 1, they went to the World Series, and 2, they did not lose today. So today has been a good day.
Today. Yes. All right.
So we'll see what tomorrow brings. You can catch us online if you want to talk about what tomorrow will bring, or about which 2 Giants you'd like to see pilot a Jaeger at TortureCast. You can also find us at torturecast.com or get our email at mail@torturecast.com. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook, find us on iTunes, find us on YouTube, find us on the internet, find us on Podomatic. Just find us at Ball Games. You can find us on August the 5th when we go back to the press box, and otherwise you can find us individually at ChadK21, at Fried Duck, or at Willie Dills. So until next time, think about my question about the Jaegers, because I'm really curious, but otherwise we'll see you next time we're back.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills, saying we'll see you next time.